Hello and welcome to Wyrd Miniatures. I'm Ender101 and today I'm going to do a product review of the new Malifaux 2E rulebook that came out of Gen Con this year. As you can see, I've got all the Malifaux books laid out here, just I thought it'd be more fun to do like a history of the Malifaux Wyrd's publications about the books and sort of work our way up to 2E and just see where it is we stand. So I got back into Malifaux in early 2010 and this book is a big reason why. My buddy picked it up and he showed it off to us, told us about the rules, and really that's what got us here into the book. I mean, you got really cool artwork. You know, the storyline was really fun. A lot of really creepy stories. I'm a big fan of the horror genre in general, so that was a really big sell for me. But, you know, it did have some big problems with layout, especially putting all of the stories here between all of the rules. Made it really complicated trying to flip back and forth, but they did have this handy little quick reference sheet in the back to make things a little bit easier for you. But, you know, it was also Wyrd's first publication, so I was willing to cut it some slack and be pretty forgiving in it. So then we got Rising Powers. Rising Powers was the first expansion for Malifaux, and it was really cool. I mean, it had the artwork went in a different direction than what we were used to before. It wasn't quite as cartoony, you know, it took on a little more of a gritty edge, but I really enjoyed it. The rules started to get away from the designers at this point, though. You could really tell. You had masters like Colette, who were really quite strange. You had masters like Karai, whose spirit shtick didn't really work with anybody else in the Wizards. So it really sort of split that faction down. It made a lot of people in that faction feel really like they had a really hard time competing with the rest of the game, just because it felt like they only had less options because everything worked only in its little place. But you know, as I said, it had really great story, and you know, it was larger than the first book. The first book, you know, was 212 pages. This one was 256. So I mean, it was a really good expansion. Okay, very, very well received. Then we got Twisting Fates. Twisting Fates is probably my favorite book, the most robust book that we had up to date, with 274 pages. It had the most groundbreaking storyline. It introduced the avatars. The avatars, you know, their rules were pretty far all over the place, really hard to balance the manifest requirements, keeping everything the same point cost. But we had some really great artwork. You know, the layout in this book was kind of what we'd expect from seeing a Wyrd release. You know, everything is nice and neat. The artwork is prominently displayed. The storyline was very well written. So I mean, this was just a very good release. This was very well received. You know, on top of the avatars, you also got just new models in general. Some just very fun new mechanics from that book as well. Last year we got Storm of Shadows. Storm of Shadows, you know, it was the smallest book Wyrd ever put out, 160 pages. The storyline is sort of, everything's standalone except for the first story. None of it really talks about the Ten Thunders in any real capacity. And you know, that's sort of disappointing, especially after Twisting Fates, where the big cliffhanger that left out on. But you know, to see why we needed a new edition of Malifaux, all you really need to do is look at page 36 here of Storm of Shadows, and they had a hiring grid. And things had gotten so complicated that they had to make a spreadsheet, a 2-page spread on what could work for which faction within the faction. It was pretty crazy. I mean, it was a cool idea, but things just didn't quite come together the way they wanted. But again, it had some really fascinating art, some really gross stuff there on the end. And just a nice layout. I really liked this book overall for that. Storyline was a little disappointing, but you know, it was a good book. It was a good release, up to par. So now we've got the Malifaux 2E. We've already seen some differences. You know, we got this really cool steampunk clock tower. We got the desperate mercenary here on the front, who's just sort of a rehash. It seems like a questionable choice to me to put him on the cover. You know, we got Malifaux 2E down here. That's a change in itself. Usually it's up here in the top, in one of the faction colors. So just making it silver here, very interesting. We've got this cool little raven picture here on the back, and you know, this is the largest book they put out at 284 pages, but you know, it's only 10 more pages than Storm of Shadows. And the rules are laid out really nicely in this book too. I mean, this is the first time I think they've said, this is a rule book, this is going to be what we're going on about. I mean, the text is really big. It's probably like, what, 18-point font or something like that. I mean, the first half of the book is basically all the rules nicely laid out. There's one little thing that will jar a lot of people though, and that's when you get into the faction sections, the individual model rules, and it's really going to make you reach for your glasses, especially when you have, you know, the little fluff story right here for the little minion, and you read the little pieces, and it's just really tiny text. It's a very questionable decision on why they did that. But you know, the in-faction area is in itself very well laid out, nice and neat, very easy to find all the pieces. Then you've got the upgrades here in the back. You know, they go from general and then within the theme of the first 3 original masters, which I think very nice choice there on their part. I think that really comes across nicely. But that in itself is really cool. I mean, the storyline in here is pretty sparse. I mean, I was expecting a lot, especially because, you know, Twisting Fates was a similar sized book, had a ton of fluff in it. This does not have a lot of storyline, and that's going to disappoint a lot of people. I know I was pretty disappointed. And, I mean, the only thing I want to talk about is the artwork. The artwork in 2E is very polarizing. I either love or hate most pieces. There are very few pieces that I sort of come down in a neutral stance. Like Francisco here, really love this piece of artwork. But then you skip over here to the Hanged. I really hate this. I mean, this is it's supposed to be the scariest thing in Malifaux. That's what the rules are supposed to be. And he looks goofy. It's just really weird to me. But, you know, other pieces, you know, pretty good. K9 Remains, nice and scary. Rondels, you know, they look a little better now. The Masters usually look pretty good. The really questionable thing about this book is you know, just the way the index is done and the lack of a quick reference sheet. I mean, it's supposed to be a new player-friendly book. I mean, it's supposed to be some of the weird people were talking about how, oh, it's our biggest book yet. And, I mean, we're really expecting some more here. I mean, this is their index. It's just 2 pages long. It only goes up to page, it's like 90, which is, it basically just covers the rules. I think you could easily put the Masters at least in here to make those a little easier to reference for new players. And you got this whole back page, you know, with the Whiskey Golem and just this Malifaux 2E. This is basically sort of dead space that you could have used for the quick reference sheet that I think a lot of players really come to sort of rely on in games, and Wyrd has usually been pretty good about quick reference sheets. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see something pop up online in the near future, but it's just sort of not in the book here. This book is pretty good. It's not quite what I was expecting quality-wise for the relaunch of Malifaux. You know, it's Wyrd's flagship product. I feel like they rushed it, and that's really what it comes down to. I feel this book could have been a whole lot better if they'd given it more time. I mean, it's not a bad release, it's just not great, which is sort of what I was expecting. I think that Malifaux probably would have been better served if they decided to announce the open beta of Malifaux 2E and the 2nd edition at Gen Con this year, as opposed to wanting the release out. That would have given them a whole nother year to sort of work out the kinks and get everything for Malifaux ready. I feel like they did themselves a little bit of a disservice by trying to get everything out for the release. I feel like they sort of trapped themselves in that. But I'm going to be signing off for now.